What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the garage. Today I've got an easy, cheap, almost free mod for you guys for first gen Xterras, and that is getting the most performance out of your stock air intake and airbox. And the way we're going to do that is by removing all of the resonators and the baffle located in the fender, and pretty much cost you nothing, like I said. And the forums claim that you gain about 1 horsepower, you have improved throttle response, and you get a little bit more growl out of the engine. Yeah, we'll see how it turns out. Should be pretty easy, so let's get to it. So really the only thing you need to buy are these what they call test plugs, and these are used for plumbing. And this one is a 1.5 inch test plug, and this one is a 2-inch test plug. And they do come in brass and other materials, but make sure you get the galvanized steel ones so they don't start corroding in your engine bay. And for me, this cost me about 13 bucks. I'm in Canada, so it'll definitely be cheaper in the States. But you may be able to find these elsewhere. I got these at Home Hardware. And if you really want to benefit from this mod, which I'm not going to do today, you can go ahead and change out the factory or standard replacement air filter and get something like a K&N or a AEM filter, something that's high flowing that still fits into the stock airbox. Okay guys, so to start this mod, we'll start by removing the first resonator located here. Now this one's fairly simple. There are a few mounting screws down here, and then there is also one located down here underneath the master cylinder. Let's see if I can see it. You can kind of see it way down there. Then the secondary resonator we're going to remove is here, which is located to the T-pipe, I guess it's called, which kind of bolts in down here. And then also connects into a large resonator that's located behind this fender. And we don't need to remove the fender. We just need to pull back the guard here, which will expose the baffle inside of it. It's a little bit tricky, but not too bad. You just got to remove these mounting screws for the guard and then just really tug on it. But first things first, we'll get started on removing the primary first resonator here and plugging that hole up with our test plugs. Ratchet with a 10mm socket worked for this screw because it's probably going to be really tight in there. So at this point the box is loose from the truck or SUV. There's a couple of vacuum hoses that are just clipped onto it, and then there is a wiring harness that is just zip tied to it. Now we can go ahead and loosen the clamp. And we should be able to wrestle this thing out of place here. So these little vacuum lines might get in the way, so we'll just disconnect these. Remember where they go. Alright, so that's the first resonator removed. So now we can jam our 2-inch test plug into this hole here. It's going to be a tight fit. And we'll just snug it down. Doesn't have to be too tight or else it'll pop out. So that seems pretty good there. And if you'd like, you can even throw a hose clamp on here just for added security. But it should be good just like this. So now moving on to resonator number 2. We'll start by taking this bracket off that holds the throttle cables. And we'll save this because we might use it again. And we'll move on to the screw holding the secondary resonator. And there we go. So with that resonator gone, this little clip here that just keeps the throttle cable from rattling around doesn't have an attachment point. So what I'm going to do here is just either bend this bit here or cut it off and bolt it on right there. To free the cable, just stick a screwdriver in here and pry it open and remove this bit. So if you decide to just bend this piece here, you're actually going to have to bend it up just a little bit to give it a bit of space here because this is curved. And then we'll just take the screw that was fastening the resonator to the radiator support here and put it back in its place. And we'll return the throttle cable. So next up we'll work on removing the T-pipe, and here we'll have the air inlet temperature sensor, which will disconnect the plug first. And then we'll want to remove this sensor completely from the T-pipe, and we want to be really careful with it. Do not touch the other end of it, and put it aside for safekeeping while we take out this other stuff. So just grab the sensor and give it a bit of a tug, and it should come out, and it looks like that. Definitely do not touch that blue bit there. I'm not even sure if you should even try to clean it, but we'll put this aside and we'll reinstall it once we get everything else set up. So to get this out of the way, there's a few different ways to do it. It's a bit of a pain regardless, but I found if we just push it like that and unseat it, separate it from the airbox. And there we go. That is the T-pipe removed. and you can see why you definitely want to take that sensor out, because getting this out isn't a delicate task. So next up, we'll just need to modify this sort of outlet or inlet just a little bit so we can fit our smaller 1.5 inch test plug. So what we want to do here is basically just cut the first ridge off. Got a line here just right in this sort of valley. We'll just slice this first ridge off, and that's basically all we need to do to this. And you can do this with an X-Acto knife or a hacksaw or whatever you want. So basically this is all you just need to cut off. And we'll go ahead and shove our test pipe in here. So here is the test plug in the T-pipe, and it does take a bit of muscle to get this in here. It's a pretty snug fit. The forum post that I saw online said you had to cut this off, but I'm kind of debating on whether or not you actually need to, because this isn't the best fit. I think a better solution would be to get a plug for this and use a hose clamp. I'm putting a hose clamp on this because I don't really trust this to stay in here that well. And I do like using these, if you can find them, these Breeze lined hose clamps. They protect the rubber. They're really good for silicone hoses. But this is what I'm going to go with for this, just for a little bit of added security. So before we put the T-pipe back in, we need to remove the baffle that's in the fender. And to get that out, there's one 10mm nut on a stud just in the fender here. If you can see it, try to zoom in on it. Yes, so that guy right there is a 10mm. We'll undo that all the way and then push that stud right out through the fender, and then we'll work on removing the liner so we can pull it all the way out. Alright, so I was undoing that, and it seems like it's broken right off, so it's loose, but it's just spinning inside, so we'll skip that, and we'll pull this fender liner off and see what's going on behind there. So, like I said before, to get the fender liner out, we'll just undo these Phillips head screws. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 that you should only have to take out, and this should be able to just drop right down. So we'll go ahead and do that. actually is double-sided tape on this thing. There's this rubber sort of bushing piece here, and it's just got a mounting stud pushed onto it. So if you just rip that off, here it is. The baffle is removed. Not without cutting my hand a little bit. Definitely be careful when you're pulling this out, because the inside of that fender can be somewhat sharp. So the baffle is removed, so we'll go ahead and put the fender liner back in place. Okay, so the fender liner is back in place, and I'd have to say that's probably the hardest part of this job, is wiggling that around and getting that set back where it was. So next up, if you can see it in there, there's a hole in the side of the fender here that will feed the this end of the T-pipe into, this end back into the airbox, and then we'll insert our temperature sensor here, and that will be it for the airbox mod, or air intake mod. Alright, that T-pipe is back in place, and let me tell you, that was a bitch. Second most difficult thing compared to the fender liner. At least this is squishy and malleable, and you can kind of push it around a bit. But there it is, with our little bit of a test pipe, or test plug there. Grab our sensor here. And place it back like so. So there we go. Temperature sensor back in place. So just to recap, primary resonator deleted, 2-inch test plug, the resonator that goes up here deleted, 1.5-inch test plug, and the baffle in the fender well has been removed. So these are the pieces and parts that you no longer need. So maybe we'll fire it up and see what it sounds like. I don't think we're really gonna hear too much of a difference. It's hard to pick up on this phone. But lastly, if you did really want to, you could put in a high flowing filter into the airbox here, and that will really let you get the most out of this stock air intake here. But we'll fire it up and give it a bit of a listen. Well, it might be hard to pick up on camera, but there actually is a noticeable sort of growl to the engine and the intake. Okay guys, as you can see, I'm covered in dirt, but I guess that's working on 4x4s. Nothing's really clean, but that basically concludes the free stock air intake mod. Essentially just the cost of a couple plumbing parts and if you'd like a performance air filter. Yeah, I mean, like I said in the beginning, apparently this does give you potentially a 1 horsepower bump, a bit of noise, nothing too crazy, but it is noticeable, and slightly better throttle response. So I'll have to see that or test that out when I go for a little spin here. But all in all, that concludes this mod, and that's it for today. So thanks for watching.